All right, hello and welcome to Starting Equipment, a D&D podcast where three nerds pretend they know what they're talking about and even sometimes make sense. My name is Jeff, aka Tum Tum, and I'm one of these legs of this tripod of hosts. Next up we have...
Eric. That's me. Yeah, I also go by Ricky to these guys. So yeah, next we have.
I'm Matt. I guess on that third post, I've got Twitter would be moldy, but you'll see all that in our notes. So I guess we're just gonna get right into it. First segment, as you've seen on our D&D stream, if you check that out, that's Monday nights from about 7 to 10 o'clock. Is what are you drinking? So Eric.
Yeah, I'm going with the back of the fridge, an old Oktoberfest. October was months ago, so yeah, it's kind of skunked, but it works.
Probably not good anymore, but sure. Jeff, you drinking anything tonight?
I'm doing the H2O variety tonight, but I'm always going to plug my Founder's Blushy Monk in hopes that they're going to make a 2018 version, 2017 version.
Please, Founders, Blushing Monk, if you watch this, that's all I ask.
Every week is just going to be like...
I had a lot of Corona Lights at the bar earlier tonight, so I'm rocking out some body armor rehydration stuff to try to get myself back ready for work tomorrow. But this is where we're at. So we're gonna get in. We're gonna start this one out. We're probably gonna have this episode this segment of most of our episodes. Basically, how to make a character. It's different facets. We're going to try to keep this as basic as possible each episode. Go over one thing, pretty simple, try to really explain it out. Now, there are people that are already going to know this, that maybe will glean something new from, our insight. And then for the rest of you that are just getting into this thing, hopefully this will help you to go along your way to creating a character. So then we're going to focus on this week is the 6 major stats. I think Eric's going to lead us in on this one.
Well, I could, but the first thing I really want to go over a little bit is the premise for this section. In a normal game of D&D, the starting equipment is what all your characters will start with to lead them into their adventure. And here we believe that the starting equipment is what you give to your players to lead them into their adventure. So this is information from players and DMs to other players on how to begin your D&D adventure. So let's jump into the 6 major stats. And mostly you'll see them in this order, but you've got strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Whee! So we're kind of going to break it down. I believe Matt has a printout of, a tomato analogy that's pretty well circulated on the internet. You don't have to hold it up. You could probably just read it.
I just want you guys to see this. We're going to be, you can screenshot this for later. We can also put this up on our Facebook page. I got the link. We can throw that up after this is over.
Especially for our viewers who aren't watching and they're just listening, that's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, so we'll try, it's one thing we'll try to do every week. It'd probably be helpful. We have a Google Drive that we all share for all the nerd stuff that we find on the internet, and anything that we reference during the show we'll try to throw up after the show on the Facebook, so that you guys can find it as well if you want, or tear it apart if you don't. It's up to you. So this is kind of an overview in the normal world, I guess, of how you can relate these and go through each one by one, to give you a better idea of what that means. So first attribute being strength. Basically, they describe this as being the ability to crush a tomato. I don't know if you guys want to break this thing down as we go individually, or want me to go through all 6 and then knock it out afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, we could just start with strength and then move on to the next one after we're done.
Sure. So strength is being able to crush a tomato. Pretty simple. It's kind of a measure of your natural athleticism or power. It's useful for some of the more in your face kind of melee classes and for other things as well.
Sure.
I think Eric over here is a little frozen. But so in terms of strength, I mean, so each character when we're building a character, right, is given a numerical value determining on what their strength is, correct?
Yeah, I think a good
Right.
way to look at it is going to kind of your sources. So if you, am I,
Yeah, you're cutting in and out, Eric. But I think it's your computer this time, not your mic. He's just freezing over and over again. Great timing. Perfect timing.
I
Great,
mean, we
Simon.
can.
I think he's still trying to talk and he's just
What
failing
is going on?
epically.
Guys,
Well, yeah,
you
I'm
know
pretty
what?
sure it is my.
This is why it's episode
Is it my
0.5
video that's freezing, or is my?
because this is what happens when
You're completely frozen on my
you're
video.
completely
Eric.
frozen and we're getting
Unfortunate.
some of your words.
Oh, it's trying.
It-
0.5, guys, is where we work out all the kinks. We're trying to get the streaming set up. This one will probably be a little rough here and there, but we'll bludgeon our way through it. And if we have to revisit some of this stuff on a later episode, we'll be sure to circle back around.
These camera freezes on Eric's face though are phenomenal.
Just priceless.
He's showing his grill right now and it's just it's so pretty.
Kind of looks like he might
Yeah,
be.
I doubt it. Am I back or what?
You're back and now you might be okay.
Drinking a glass. There we
Yeah,
are, and
all
we're
right.
back.
Yeah. Woo!
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what's going on.
So we're crushing tomatoes.
Yeah, so I mean, I know you guys had kind of touched on some of it, and I heard most of it, but you were talking about numeric values. I don't know if, I mean, we can get into that after we kind of discuss what all of these mean.
Sure.
And I think a good way to kind of approach all of these would be to talk about literature, TV, movies, whatever, and kind of give examples. So when I think of strength, just pure strength in a character, I think of like from Game of Thrones, the Mountain. That's just pure strength, just a huge guy, lots of strength, lots of power kind of thing. Probably crushes lots of tomatoes.
So when you're thinking like when you're thinking like not a lot of strength, is it like Kermit the Frog? Just like Jello arms, just
Not a lot of strength. Tim from Holy Grail.
that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, strength is really just this straight up measure of, at the end of the day, it's just power. I mean, big, like Conan, Tarzan,
Yeah.
instead as an "an" on the end of it, like your face, beating up apes, swing a big sword. I mean, it's also, and then it's used in some minor checks, which we'll try to get into later. Not confuse the issue too much right now, but I think that's a pretty good example for the first one. Just when you're thinking strength, what do you use your strength for?
Quick question.
So the next
though.
one coming down the list.
I had a
Yeah,
quick question
what's up?
about strength. One more. So if like you're like, how does one crush a tomato stronger? Like, how do you know how strong you are by crushing a tomato?
Do you get puree, paste?
Or does it just disappear?
Just disappear? You just
All right, I was just
There's
curious.
a red cloud of vapor.
right.
Well,
Just,
I think about it this way: hand a 2-year-old kid a tomato and tell him to try to squeeze it, and they may be able to break through the skin. Or hand I don't know, an MMA fighter a tomato and watch it disappear into a red vapor cloud. I mean, I think you're right. And the fact not so much you can crush a tomato more into smaller particles so much as if you're playing a weaker character, if you have a real bad roll, which we'll go into on episode on how these stats are later on how these are figured out. But if you don't have a lot of strength, you may have problems doing very simple tasks. Which is the Kermit example. Kermit's not really going to be carrying around a two-handed axe because he wouldn't be able to handle it. So that's maybe the opposite there.
Perfect.
Next one down on this list would be dexterity. They define it in this example, which again we'll post up on the Facebook page, as being able to dodge a tomato. Who wants to run with this one?
Yeah, I will. I think more in general, dexterity is referred to as your reflexes, balance, kind of, in a way, your reaction time as well. So things that
Would it be safe to say your ability to make action? Is that would that be something that makes sense?
that's I guess a fair point. You could say it that way. I think it's your ability to act and react faster than someone else.
Sure.
And it's useful for firing bows or jumping and tumbling. It's acrobatics as well, tied into it. It's your grace in a way as well.
Good example of popular culture. I think number one that comes to my mind is probably Legolas.
Yep.
Riding a shield down a set of stairs while still firing a bow probably requires a bit of dexterity to handle that. It's in some sense it also relates a little bit to coordination in the fact that you can handle acrobatic feats without failure. So higher dexterity allows you to do that. I relate a quick example to the current adventure we're running. I'm running a guy that have a whole lot of dexterity, so the way I'm trying to play him along is he sort of toddles along in his armor, isn't really stealthy, can't really handle to sneak around and hide behind things or whatever. And firing arrows out from behind them without probably missing and shooting myself in the foot. So
Sure.
Anybody got any other examples of popular culture? Maybe can help out with either somebody that's either super dexterous or the complete opposite. You could probably throw out the Hulk is probably not somebody with a whole ton of dexterity. Might fit into the first category there. A lot of strength, not super dexterous. So we're probably knocking out 2 there.
There you go. Then same lines. Anyone you can pick literally anyone who uses a bow that's proficient with a bow in like Hawkeye or things like that. They're all like anyone who actually legitly uses a bow is going to have a high dexterity. Just a lot of hand-eye coordination and reaction time. You got to release that bow or release that arrow at a certain point in time to line it up, and everything needs to fall in place, and you have to have that perfect timing to which means you have high dexterity.
I would agree with that. I think that there's plenty of examples out there. I think Rangers are the easy go-to. Mm-hmm. But I think Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow also falls into that category. She's more of a rogue type, but it's still based on acrobatics and tumbling and using speed rather than strength.
True.
For those of you out there, we're going to probably make a lot of Avengers and Lord of the Rings references throughout this. So get up on your movies and you'll keep up real easily.
There'll be a Game of Thrones thrown in as well, I believe.
Yeah, we'll hit a bit there too. Let's run that third one through. So Constitution, kind of a measure of your vitality. The tomato example would be defined as being able to eat a bad tomato. So that's, just, Constitution is really going to run, high Constitution, high health. You start running out of Constitution, things aren't going to go so well.
Right. So Constitution relates directly to your hit points as well in game. So the higher your Constitution, the more hit points you will get as your character becomes stronger. And it also helps you to resist effects like poison. So it's a general hardiness of your character.
Yeah. Would it be safe to say Constitution kind of is willpower, like will to push through certain things, shoot through injuries, through taking a hit, through taking that poison and spitting it back out, kind of thing, where it doesn't really affect you?
I would be cautious of using the word willpower since that's closely associated with wisdom. But yes, it is your determination, I guess.
St. Pittner in chat says Wesley from Princess Bride has a high constitution.
Correct.
That's a perfect example. I like that a lot. Yeah, we should make more Princess Bride references. Well, I can't say I'm a Rhodes Scholar on that, but yeah. So I mean, there are also things that there's modifiers to the Constitution. Constitution is one of those stats. Once we kind of get deeper into making a character, that is important for everybody. A lot of these other ones, when you're making a build for a character, you're gonna say, I'm making a barbarian or a fighter, or somebody that gets really in your face with a big sword, a ton of strength, but not going crazy on my wisdom or something like that. Constitution is, hey, I want to be alive longer, so let me get some points there so die so easily.
I think another important thing that a lot of people have to worry about is it's your ability to resist being drunk. And all adventures end in a tavern at some point. Let's be honest.
Yeah, doing a saving throw on your Constitution. By the way, I know we're throwing out some classes here. You can think of barbarian, fighter, rogue in the traditional sense, what you've seen in movies, other games and things like that. We will be going into each one of those in detail as we progress along. But if we're using those terms now, just take it in the general sense. Yeah. And we can go into greater depth with that. So, hitting on the fourth one, we're hitting intelligence. That would be defined as knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Intelligence is defined, I guess, as mental acuity, or just having general information.
I've heard it was a vegetable.
Point proven.
I've heard you're playing with a low intelligence score. So, I think you can probably relate intelligence to the entire cast of Big Bang Theory, if we're going to throw TV shows out there. Now, granted, some of them I'm not sure. So you could probably rank that hierarchy of intelligence if you're one of those hardcore Big Bang nerds. But they're all considered to be of above average intelligence. This isn't necessarily saying that they have a great perception of things. We're going to go into that next. It's more just raw knowledge or information.
Right. A good way to think about intelligence is kind of book smarts. And there's a difference between book smarts and street smarts. And your intelligence is more of things that you can learn through study and constant practice and repetition kind of things. It'll affect your character's ability to do math or to recall information that they've read in a book or things of that nature.
Intelligence really leads into the next one in the separation between maybe book smarts and street smarts, and the next one being wisdom, which is defined as knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad. That one kind of gives me probably one of the bigger chuckles on reading this whole thing, other than maybe the one coming up for charisma, but we'll hit that in a little bit. But the wisdom, as Eric was relating to, is more the intuition, insight, and not so much on the book smart side that you can understand a whole lot of things and be incredibly intelligent and not really know what to do with that information. So I don't know. I think maybe if we can try to relate that one to another popular character, it'll give people a clearer difference between the two, because I think these two are a little confusing of all these traits. I don't know if you guys have any off the top of your head.
So,
or one that has a
Pittner
lack
in chat was
of
asking
wisdom.
what classes benefit most from a high intelligence versus some with a high wisdom. So, even if we're not going to specific classes right now, what type of, who would benefit more from a high intelligence rather than a high wisdom in terms of style?
So, generally speaking, in terms of characters, wizards in the D&D realms benefit from intelligence because their spells are cast through learning spell books. Think of like Harry Potter in a way. It's going to the books, learning the incantations, learning the motions, learning the reagents that they need, and being able to cast. Whereas clerics um, use wisdom as their casting power because it's their awareness, their intuition into the world that can see the connection between them and the gods. So their wisdom brings them closer to their deity, which allows them to cast. So it's a difference between having to learn a spell book and knowing that your deity's power is there to help you. Druids are the same way. They have a natural awareness of everything that's around them in nature, and in drawing all that in, they don't necessarily have to be intelligent, but they can be wise in the ways of the world.
So intelligence is learning what you're using, or learning what you want to use through books, through study, through things. Wisdom is using what is there and to your benefit, pretty much.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a good way to think.
And you'll see this as we go into, over the next few weeks into the individual classes, how these relate based on some of the traits and things that are coming up. I probably don't want to over complicate things right at this point. But I think that was a great summary that Eric put through, to give a better understanding of what the difference is. And like I said, for me, when we first started doing this, those were the two that I was kind of it was confusing the most, trying to keep separate. But I think that's a great way to put it together. This next one is probably my favorite. At least. I don't, I think some of us have it in varying degrees, even on this podcast. I don't know where I rate on that, but we'll let you guys decide. Charisma would be defined as being able to sell a tomato-based fruit salad. There is also a comment below it that says a tomato-based fruit salad would simply be salsa. Which makes me happy in a way that I can't truly describe. So, one of you want to run with charisma? Whichever one of you feels more charismatic tonight.
Jeff.
That's Big Jeff. Big Chief.
Got him.
All right, charisma. I'll take first run on this. Then it's kind of your eloquence. Just general confidence. Persuade people, to liven up a room, to charisma is a thing in real life outside of D&D. Those that are charismatic can generally get things what they want a little bit easier, have better powers of persuasion, whereas those who don't may find it harder to convince people to follow them. In real life, not even using fantasy examples, very charismatic people have become leaders of countries, leaders of cults, things not always for the good. We're talking about D&D. There's a good and an evil side here, and they can gain a following a little bit easier than those that have troubles with this particular stat.
Sure. I think so. Someone I would relate it to, in my mind, would be going with more Avengers references is Tony Stark. I feel like his charisma, he has a pretty high charisma level. He's very, he knows how to speak. He knows how to speak to people, even though he comes off, to some people as, a jerk, which sometimes charismatic people do. He generally uses his words a lot of times to get what he wants, because especially when he's out of his suit. He needs to use other powers besides that.
I actually really like that example. I thought you were originally going to go with Nick Fury, which I think is also a decent example.
That's a good one.
His whole putting together the Avengers Initiative is him going out and just talking to all these people that are, in a way at a much higher power level than he is, yet he is able to sway all these people eventually to the cause.
Anybody got an uncharismatic player in popular culture?
What was
Somebody
that?
who's
Uncharismatic.
lacking charisma. A good example is somebody that just can't get what they want, can't convince people of anything. I've been trying to rack my brain on this for a couple of days now, and I can't really think of a good, well-rounded one. But we bring in an interesting background here and see if anybody had anything there.
Also Tony Stark.
Yeah. Also Tony Stark.
Tony Stark in the bad situation, sure. Yeah, I don't know. For me,
Iron Man 2. I think Iron Man 2 is a great example of a very non-charismatic. I mean, it's him, kind of going into his depression and kind of he loses that charm, that edge to him, and just doesn't care what other people think about him, and he basically just throws off all that charisma and just says what he wants, does what he wants, and no one really likes him for it.
Who's the doofy guy in Harry Potter? Thinking of somebody really like.
Neville.
What was it?
Neville.
Yeah, to me,
Neville?
that's he doesn't have the highest charisma level.
That's a good example. Just because you're not charismatic doesn't mean you can't be a hero in some points. I think and that's none of these things. We've gone through all 6 really quickly now. Now I think from more of a general sense, none of these things are really going to cripple your character. When you're rolling out in D&D. Now, Constitution could quite literally cripple your character if it comes out too low. But other than that, you can play classes with lower stats in this. It just requires a little bit more role playing, to be able to handle that lower stat. And an example would be a lower charisma guy, is going in town trying to buy some goods, and goes up to the shopkeeper and he's trying to barter with him, and just ends up getting schooled and ends up paying twice as much, because he gets taken the better of. If you guys want to throw out some other one there.
Yeah, I think other ones that are interesting if they're low is intelligence. I think most people that play D&D are of a average or higher intelligence. It takes a lot of work to kind of get into a character, and I think that playing a really low intelligence character is difficult because if it's low enough, your character that you're playing might not even be able to read, and how do you play a character that doesn't know how to read?
Yeah.
And at that intelligence, you also you can't do basic math. Trying to recall certain details or events that happen to you might actually cause you physical harm because you think too hard. So there's all these interesting, as a DM, there's all these very interesting role playing elements that come from very low scores.
Yeah.
And that I always bring up. I love the idea of having just 1 or 2 really not very good scores.
Yeah, I think for me the most interesting to have a low scoring would be dexterity for most players, because we're so used to because when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you see yourself as the hero most of the time, even if you're evil, have evil intentions, whatever. You're playing a hero type character, and we're so used to watching these movies and TV shows of them doing these crazy feats and like doing these like we said, for example, like Legolas, like pulling like 14 arrows out within like 15 seconds, hitting every single one, jumping up on things, doing rolls and things, and you try to do those in game because you want to be cool, you want to be like those heroes that you see on TV, and it doesn't work out especially when you have a low dexterity score.
So you don't see yourself as the character who like tries to jump up on a step and trips and face plants? Is that that's how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it.
My character is 4 feet tall and 159 pounds. He's not much of anyone. But it's been fun. I do like Jeff's example because I am playing in that right now. Now I'm dexterity of 8, which is not crippling by any means, but it is something that coupled with having that. You can't do everything. You can't think that you're, crazy, acrobatic, diving off a cliff and grabbing a tree branch and swinging yourself back up because, if you were all God mode, you all had perfect strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, then, it would take fun out of the game and the fact that you really wouldn't be bad at anything. And then there's no challenge there. I think part of playing this is the role playing opportunity of having something that you need to work on, or that you're just not good at, and the fact that things are difficult. You're trying to overcome things. You're not just walking through and sweeping your sword side to side and mowing everything down as you walk to the end and grab the treasure. If we were all doing that, we'd just turn on time mode on some of the video games we play, and that just gets boring after a while. So
Yeah, I think that's all good examples. Do we want to move on to kind of talking about some of the characters that you can create?
sure, you want to lead us in?
Sure. I think the easiest way to kind of explain what we're doing is we're just going through the player's handbook right now, and we're going to go alphabetically through a race and a class every week. So we're going to start with a race. We're going to talk about it a little bit, kind of talk about some of the bonuses that class receives, talk about popular fiction that has those races or those classes, and take a deeper dive into inspiration and how you would play that character, what you could look to for inspiration, or maybe some examples of what maybe not to do, maybe a direction you wouldn't want to take your character. So I guess we'll start with a race first, and we're going to talk about dwarves this week. So yeah, we got a dwarf in the group right now. So I think that a good way to think about dwarves is that they are hardy people that live underground for the most part. There are sub races that live above ground, but for most people thinking about it, you'll have kind of a Lord of the Rings vibe, and you'll think of shorter people that are between 3.5, 4 feet tall, usually stockier, usually muscled. And that does come in show in their racial abilities. They're hardier than most. They gain more constitution than other characters. Anybody else want to kind of talk about some of the stuff?
I one of the things that sticks out to me immediately is the hardiness that you're talking about. They have their constitution is modified on a dwarf race. You get a plus to that. Now, when we get into the stat examples in and of themselves and what that means, that'll make a little bit more sense. But I mean, even if you think about it in just the generic sense, if you're getting 2 added to whatever your constitution is, that's just adding more, like we talked earlier, hardiness and health, and to be able to resist a hit and not have it knock you down, kind of deal. So I kind of, I'm playing a dwarf cleric in our current adventure, and he's in some respects he's kind of like a little tank in the fact that I've got some armor on, I've got a decent constitution, and it's going to take more than one hit to knock me out, and it's something I appreciate with the dwarf class, and I'd like to try to play it again, maybe under dwarf race. I mean, and play it again under different class, just to see if that constitution can help out on a different class that maybe could use it a little bit more to their advantage.
I think another thing that really sticks out for dwarves for me is dark vision and dwarven resilience. So these things kind of tie into the normal places that you see dwarves. So underground, dark vision allows them to see up to 60 feet as if it were dim light instead of total darkness. And their dwarven resilience ties into their constitution just from their rough lives, and they've built up a resilience. They have advantage against poison. So we'll get into poison and advantage and disadvantage at another time, but having advantage is good and disadvantage is bad, as the names might imply, that when you would be poisoned, you have advantage against that. And you already have a high constitution, as we talked about earlier, so you already have a higher ability to resist it, and then you gain an additional bonus to that.
Yeah, the only note I would think about dwarfs that I would have is more of in terms of just what type of characters they have, is I feel like dwarves, they more of, they trust dwarfs. Like they're very trustworthy of dwarfs. They stay very true to their kind, and I feel like they're stubborn in that way, and because like you said, they're most of the time they're underground in mountains, things like that, where they're secluded with just other dwarves. And when it comes to meeting other races and things like that, it's like they're just a little bit a little bit more stubborn and becoming very trustworthy of those other races. And that's the only thing that I've noticed with most dwarves in terms of just their general personality.
I mean, Matt, I think you can talk a bit more on that.
Yeah, um, the character that I'm playing right now, he's there's a history to it that I won't go into too much detail just for some time, but he was in a group of mercenaries that he went along with and things like that. But one of the most important things to him, and one of the most important things I think to the race in general, is their people, their clan. Alluding to what Jeff said about being maybe a little untrustworthy of the other races and a little stubborn and things like that. They go by they have clan names, and they have really strong brotherhoods with their cousins and elders and the race that they live with and things like that. And they've used that to forge great empires. I mean, they're some of the you see some of their even in, like, if you're using a popular example of like Lord of the Rings and things, you see some of their metalsmithing and stonemason work and the great statues and things that they've created as a civilization. I mean, they're not these underground little trolls living in a cave beating sticks against the wall. They have really created a life for themselves. But as was talked about a little earlier, there is a little bit of an isolation there. And so I've come into a party with a couple of humans and a halfling and a couple of elves, and so it's when we first started, I'm not really super open to these guys. I'm not really loving the fact that I'm surrounded by a bunch of other people that I don't really know, don't look like me, don't act like me, don't talk like me. So, it's one of those things that it gives you kind of a role playing opportunity. You can get into a party. If you see a party, you guys might be super chummy right away. Find out that you're from the same clan, whatever. And then conversely, you see somebody that you're not a huge fan of, then it might take a little while to warm up with them, even if you are trying to adventure together. It doesn't have to affect the characteristics of the party itself, but in the exposition area, you can well, I don't trust an elf, and all those famous lines from movies that I'll butcher throughout this entire thing, so I don't know. I really like where I'm at, guy. I think it'll be great to get perspective from each one of us as we hit the race that we're playing as we go. And I don't know if anybody's got anything else on that one.
Not on that particularly. I think we can kind of dive into the dwarven sub-races and see what you guys think of each. So dwarves have two sub-races. There's hill dwarves and mountain dwarves. What separates the two is location for the most part, but because of where they live, they have different modifiers. So hill dwarves will also get an increase to wisdom in addition to their constitution, but mountain dwarves will get an increase to their strength in addition to their constitution. But hill dwarves gain dwarven toughness, which allows them to gain additional hit points when they level up. But then your mountain dwarves will also have armor training, and they will gain proficiency in different types of armor. Do either of you have anything to say on which you think you like more, or is it kind of a wash as being dwarven is really the main thing that you are?
For me, I haven't had much experience using and or doing research on dwarves, so I mean, dwarfs are dwarfs to me, whether it makes the hill or mountain. There's really no difference to me.
I think it applies a little bit to the class that you're playing on which one you might prefer to be. Getting that little bit of a bonus there. Really, I don't want to say that I'm going to try and
Can you, Matt? Can you? You're breaking up. Can you? Can you start over?
It was me.
Yep, you're good.
Get you now though. It's that dang
We
hotel.
back? All right. Yeah, it's that hotel internet. Sorry, guys. I'm traveling this week. I'll be back on like 10 times the speed when I get home next week. So like what I was saying is, as far as the sub races, I'm really looking at that as a race class combo, and I'm not going to go too far down into this until we've gotten through the classes because I don't want to confuse people at this point. We're trying to get you some information, let you, mull this over. So, adding that wisdom score, being a hill dwarf, that's really helping me playing my cleric class. We kind of discussed the wisdom being helpful. Eric was talking earlier about if you're playing cleric, you kind of want a little bit more wisdom. Not going to go into how the points change it all that much, but again, plus points, never really a bad thing. Whereas if I was playing like a dwarf, I don't know, fighter or a barbarian or something like that, I might rather be a mountain, get that extra strength, hit a little bit harder, get a little bit more bonus. Again, more strength, more harder, more crushy, less tomato. So
in terms of like role playing and personality wise, what do you guys think, or what do you guys think is there any difference, or what do you guys think?
As for a difference, I think a good way to look at it might be the difference between Gimli and Thorin. I think the two of them are slightly. Yeah, I don't know for sure if they would be considered different. My Lord of the Rings lore isn't outstanding, but they feel different in the way that they are. Gimli feels more mountain dwarf, very much a in-your-face fighter type of person, whereas Thorin, he seems more like a roamer, not necessarily an under the mountain kind of person who was sent, to go do a quest. He was displaced from his home. He is wandering. He picked up the ways of the world, yet he still has all those dwarven traits, the greed, the love of clan, the having his family around him.
It's a pretty good example. Chat, feel free to tear Eric apart if you disagree, but I think it really. I honestly I don't disagree with what he said. And I when I saw that I was playing a hill dwarf versus a mountain dwarf, it's kind of nice in the starter set. I don't know if for those of you that have picked it up, you'll know there's pretty many characters to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and I was trying to figure out what the difference would be in my mind for role playing, and I think I wish I would have had the conversation with Eric before we started, because I probably would have taken that more into advice. But that might shape the rest of our adventure. We'll have to see. So
yeah. Before we move on, for all of you in chat, Screaming Duergar, we're sticking to just Player's Handbook at this point. There are Duergar, which are another subrace of elves, which are playable in their iterations of player help, but we're not going to dive into that because I think sticking to the Player's Handbook as is right now is the best way to go, so that anybody just jumping in can get a feel. So if you guys have nothing else to add, we can move on to our class.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about barbarians.
So in barbarians, just looking at our player's handbook, right off the bat, they just in the beginning they give a general description. It says barbarians are a fierce warrior of primitive background who can enter a battle rage. Go into more on that. What do you guys think? What makes them so primitive, and how does that correspond into their skills and things like that?
From my perspective, I think it's tribal. I think well, there are also fighters in the world of D&D, which I consider to be more like knights or a historical example. Think the Roman army versus the hordes that came in and invaded Rome. That's sort of the difference. Both are warriors that fight in melee combat, but one side is a military trained force where the other is a tribe of people that and that's the difference. It's I think the difference is more background than necessarily playstyle, but the barbarian does have battle rage, and they can enter this state of fury, and just go ham, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, in Pittner back in chat, he said you were a reasonable assessment for your hill and mountain dwarfs, I assume, and also
nice.
in the term in relation to barbarians in all caps, he said, "I would like to rage."
Of course.
And that's, if who doesn't know, is a reference to Grog. I'm assuming is what he meant in Critical Role, which is another D&D stream. And it's amazing.
Plug in Critical Role. Probably going to do that at least twice every episode. It's some good stuff.
Worth it.
If you can, the barbarian versus maybe a more traditional fighter, not necessarily the fighter class, but just more of a melee, got a sword, swinging around kind of thing, is the ability to take self-control and throw it out the window a little bit and go into that battle rage that sort of almost in some cases, and they're actually, when we get further into this, throwing caution to the wind in the pursuit of as much damage as humanly possible, or not humanly, depending on your race, I suppose. The fighter could be a very well trained, or just a fighting class is well trained, maybe in swordcraft. They're more traditional, going to try to gain the upper hand because the other guy's making a mistake. Whereas a barbarian, for me, is I'm gonna bash my way through you until you fail and now you're dead.
I think a good mantra of the barbarian is, if brute force isn't working, you aren't using enough.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, barbarian's like, I'm gonna try to beat you to a pulp, and if it doesn't work, I'm gonna try harder.
Right. I think another large distinction for the barbarian classes is that the lack of armor, lack for self-preservation, because barbarians can gain armor. So most classes, if they're unarmored, gain armor solely based on their dexterity score, but barbarians can also factor in their constitution score. So they're just very hardy. They're just bags of health that swing a big stick, in a way.
As we go through this, we'll be referring to armor classes and the ways that those things are calculated. I think one of the traits that that Eric's referring to is just called unarmored defense. They're adding that extra modifier there. They're so one-minded into, I want to kill you, and I'm big and strong, and I'm raging, and everything is pulsing through me, that their sheer force alone and happiness is helping to armor themselves against your attacks, whether they're wearing a big plate or not, and they wouldn't want to. That goes back to the trial aspect, that wearing heavier armor is only going to slow them down, and they can't kill you as quickly. So
right.
So back to the chat. So would there ever be such a thing as an intelligent barbarian?
Oh, absolutely.
Would it make any sense?
I think it would. I think that there would be intelligent barbarians. It's not like being a tribal person means that you're not necessarily intelligent. I don't know if putting points in intelligence is necessarily intelligent, but either way, I think that every tribe, they need a strategist, and that's sort of what an intelligent barbarian would be a leader, a strategist, a military commander type of character.
Sure.
It's a good example. Yeah, your general sort of grunt barbarian running in, tearing things up, is probably not going to have the most high intelligence in the world, but there's got to be somebody to lead the tribe to help them to survive. Just because, I think in a lot of popular culture, we think of tribe or tribal as being incredibly primitive and not understanding the outside world and how to survive and things like that. But that's not the case really anywhere. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a thing as tribes. And so you got to have the guys that have the understanding of even the things passed down within the tribe, that learning is intelligence. You have to, remember the places you're getting food from, remember, from your past and mistakes and things like that. So, as Eric said, the leaders or the elders are probably going to have the higher intelligence than maybe the young guys, but the young guys will maybe be a little bit more reckless, and are probably stronger than the leaders because they're just coming into their prime.
Let's take a little deeper dive into the barbarian race and get into some of the mechanics. I think it's been mentioned a couple times, but barbarians have the ability to, while in battle, go into a battle rage. So what that means for a barbarian is that they gain advantage on strength checks and saving throws. So basically, there are some effects that may cause you to use your strength. Let's say an enemy is trying to bust down a door and you're on the other side. As a barbarian, if you're in a battle rage, you have an advantage when trying to keep him from coming through the door by pressing yourself up against it. Other things that you can do is you gain bonuses to your attack damage if you're using a strength-based weapon. So think great axe, great swords, large weapons. You deal more damage with it if you're in rage. Another thing is you have resistance to damage. Not all damage, but bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. And what resistance gives you is it halves the damage you would take. So while you're in this raging state, you just take less damage from most basic sources, which can be huge. However, something to note is that your rage can only last for a minute, or unless you're knocked unconscious. And you can only rage so many times. Your body can only take so much of an adrenaline rush in a single day. So how do you guys feel about that rage, and how do you think that maybe the way you play your character changes after you've entered a rage?
I think one of the just notes of things that you said is raging for only a minute. Well, you have to assume that a minute is a lot longer than a minute when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. So, like when he says a minute, it's going to be, a
most likely entire combat.
Yeah, for the most part, it's it's a lot of actions within that minute, but the minute in D&D time's a lot longer. That's good.
As far as the rage goes, maybe something we should touch on real quick is what the terminology for advantage means.
Sure.
When you're making a check, generally, just because it's probably going to come up a couple more times in this, and I just want to make sure that nobody's confused. And when you're making a normal check for pretty much anything, you're rolling 1d20. If that term is not familiar to you, it'd be the 20-sided dice. I'm sure somebody's going to pull one out, and there goes Eric. I knew it was going to happen. When you gain advantage on a roll, it means that you're going to roll that die twice, or roll two of them if you have them, and take the higher of the result, which is really, in most games, even if you're not talking role playing, you're not talking pen and paper, more dice is usually a better result for things. Conversely, disadvantage would be rolling that die twice, or rolling two dice and taking the worse result. So what you need to, as we go through this, advantage is always giving you a better chance to get a better number. Disadvantage is giving you a higher chance of getting a worse number. And if you have neither, you're just rolling, the one die for the check. I'm sure at some point we're going to go into that in a lot greater detail, but just to throw that out there really quick so people have an understanding of that. As far as going back to Eric's question and the rage thing, I think when I go rage, I go reckless. If I'm playing this character, I'm going into rage. I'm getting advantage. I'm getting extra damage, and I see an opportunity to where I can make a goblin or whatnot disappear, or turn to two one halves of one. And so I get up in there, I get crazy, I'm raging up, and I'm doing a lot of damage really quick and trying to end the threat, so to speak.
Yeah, in terms of role playing, even in and out of battle, in battle, it would be making decisions maybe you wouldn't make normally. In terms of, it could be more dangerous. It could be things that wouldn't maybe not benefit you in the long run even especially if you fail at your attempt. So I think that when it comes to raging, that's one thing in terms of making your decisions on what your player or what your character is doing could come into effect.
And I agree with that. I think that when you enter that rage, it just becomes bloodlust to an extent. You don't enter the rage because, oh well, I'm in combat. I want to do this. No, you enter rage to get into the fight, to just start swinging your sword, get in there. It's even more reckless than you would normally be. You don't care about being hit as much because you're taking half the damage. So you're just rushing in there with all that adrenaline and just doing everything that you can.
Yeah, pretty much. Best reference, that closest reference you can get is the Hulk. Hulk is Hulk rage.
Yes.
I mean, even if you're trying to, you want to keep someone conscious or keep someone alive or something, and you want some information for them, when you get the Hulk in there, he just punches people and he doesn't listen. He doesn't really care. So like, it could not be beneficial to in the long run to rage, but it's a part of the barbarian and it is very useful.
I think even touching on that Hulk example, another thing to say is that while you are mostly friendly with your party, you might not be super friendly to your
party. You don't
party.
want to get in the Hulk's way.
You don't want to get in the way. You just let them go. All right, barbarian, go for it.
One thing to note as you're leveling a barbarian up, and there's a really great chart on page 47 of the player's handbook, is the higher level that you get with this. I believe it was Eric that touched on earlier that you are only going to be able to do this so many times before you're going to have to take a rest to kind of regain your anger meter, so to speak, or whatnot. As you level up, you're going to gain the ability to rage more often and for a greater damage. I'm not going to throw this up on the screen. I could throw a screenshot of it up on the Facebook page if you want to take a look at it if you don't own the player's handbook. But it's one of those things where you're like, okay, so for instance, first level you start out, you get +2 rage damage, and you got 2 rages before your long rest. Well, in some cases, you're not going to long rest for quite some time. And so you're thinking, this isn't all that useful. I'm only going to get to do it once or twice, and then I'm going to have to wait, and I'm just going to be like a normal guy swinging an axe around like a moron or whatever. You got to understand that with all these classes we go through, you're going to get more powerful, and you're going to be able to use it more often, to where you are a big, angry, bad guy that every time you guys get in a fight, you go, screw it, I'm raging, get out of my way, And so, and that's awesome to me. That's the thing where, playing this character, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to be reckless. There's probably going to be some times where I'm going to drop because I do something stupid, but if hit it, anybody on the stream, anybody in the group is going to, holy cow, I don't even understand how you did that much damage in one turn. That was awesome. And something you're going to talk about for a while, about that crazy thing you did to that dude where now he's split in half,
So just something you referenced a few times in that explanation, you reference a long rest. So doing a certain amount of actions before you long rest, what exactly is a long rest?
So a long rest is what most people do at night. It's about 8 hours of sleep.
So you wouldn't long rest in the middle of the day. So it's not like I'm going to go fight and then in character be like, I'm going to take a long rest right now. It's 3 p.m. It wouldn't make any sense.
Right. So your long rest basically ends your day as your character. So your characters, just like you, need to rest. After combat, there's such a thing as a short rest, which is a half hour to a 1 hour break of just kind of resting, recuperating from your physical exertion. But then at the end of the day, you take a long rest. You take 8 hours of sleep.
So sometimes back to what Matt was saying, so you can only do so much per day if you want to put it in reference of, instead of saying long rest, so much per day until you have to rest and then get it back in the next day.
Right. So let's go over some of the other kind of important, I'm just going to pick a few of the important points from the barbarian class that I think are useful to talk about. So I think reckless attack is important. So what that can do is you can go throw even more caution to the wind, and you will gain advantage on all your attacks that you make during your turn. However, in exchange for that, anybody who attacks you during the next round will gain advantage on attacking you. So you really go for just a large swing. Basically, is what it's saying. You swing with all your might. You leave yourself completely open to attack, though. Also, you gain at the same time. You also get danger sense, which means you have an uncanny sense of when something's not right. You gain advantage on dexterity saving throws. So if you're going to fall into a pit trap, or a wizard is shooting a fireball at you, you have advantage on saving yourself from those effects. And I think that both of those things really tie in well to the barbarian class. Recklessness and just throwing caution to the wind, and then also having heightened senses of when something bad is going to happen.
So you reference
Matt, hold on, you're breaking up.
Yeah, you're getting all robotic.
How
Matt, you're lagging still.
He's back.
All right. Welcome back.
So, hey, thanks, guys. I'm loving this hotel in sunny. I'm not going to tell you so you don't come kill me. You were referencing throws. I know we talked about ability checks. I feel like we should probably do a little quick. What are we saying there? What's the difference between, using an attack and then saving yourself? How does that relate to what dice are doing, or
So
quick?
It's very much the same thing. So your check is related to something that you're the person enacting the action. So if your character is doing something, you are doing an ability check. However, if something is being done to you and you are trying to avoid that, that's a saving throw. Both things require you to roll a d20 and add, your strength, your dexterity, whatever modifier is associated with it. So when you're trying to avoid falling into a trap or avoiding getting hit by a fireball, that's dexterity. You're using that quickness to say, okay, there's an explosion coming. I dive out of the way. Or I'm about to fall into a pit that's 20 feet deep with spikes at the bottom. Instead, how about I use my quickness to leap across to the other side instead? So that's kind of a quick explanation of those two things. Do you guys have any kind of opinions on reckless attack or danger sense?
Seems useful.
No. Sure.
Anything that gives you advantage, to me, I like throwing dice, and more dice gives me a chance to not roll as poorly as, sometimes. So, the reckless attack, I think you need to be a little careful with. It really, I guess, depends on how you're role-playing your character. If you're going to get reckless constantly because you can, that may leave you needing to be, healed up a little bit better as you're getting out there. And I put it this way: I'm going to use reckless attack. I'm hoping that the guy that I'm hitting with it is dead, and so there is no advantage,
right? And
there's nobody else around. Yeah, kind of like. There's one guy left. I'm chasing after him, and I go, nope. You know what? You're. This is the end of you, kind of deal. But there's other points where you say, we need to do this. We need to knock it down, and and if I get hurt in the process, so be it. I'm raging. I'm ready.
I'm just gonna take two quick more points on barbarian.
I got juiced up, and go.
In chat, Pinner said Leroy Jenkins. I would agree with him, except I don't. I don't think that's to do with rage. I think that's to do with a low intelligence score. It's more like it.
Bit of both.
Yeah, bit of both. Low intelligence and might have shot up a little bit before that raid. So that's a World of Warcraft reference for any of you on the stream that don't play that game. And if you don't, shame on you.
There was also a Marvel reference in there, but we'll let that one slide. Guardians of the Galaxy. So the last thing I want to touch on is the two paths that a berserker can take. So as you're leveling up your Berserker, there would be two clear paths that open up before you. One is the path of the Berserker, and one is the path of the Totem Warrior. So, just a quick explanation of each. I'm not going to dive too much into the skills, but Path of the Berserker is just a way to dig deeper into your rage. So, you can frenzy. It gives you more attacks during your turn. You can mindless rage. You can't be charmed or have anything that affects your mind, because you basically turn blank and you are just an attacking machine. And then you've got the Path of the Totem Warrior, which is more about a tribal journey. Think about a good example would be in Mayan or Aztec cultures, the warriors that would go down a certain path. You'd have your jaguar warriors that, it was a rite of passage. It was, you would go out into the wild, you would do what you needed to do, and then you were initiated into that portion of the tribe. And that's kind of what the Totem Warrior is. There are three specific paths that you can take. You can be the path of the, a subset of that is bear, eagle, or wolf. And that's how you find your totem spirit, which is basically your channel. So bear is about strength, eagle is about sight and awareness, and wolf is about pack hunting and dexterity. So what do you guys think about the two paths that are laid out before barbarians?
So for the aspects, do you have to pick one?
You
Each
pick one.
barbarian only picks one animal, and that's what they follow?
Correct.
I was, when I was reading through this, I was looking at it in the fact maybe we could combine them together, but yeah, the Berserker to me seems like I'm getting in your face, big damage,
Breaking up
big.
again, Matt.
It's
like
me,
internet.
it's as an individual. Hello.
You're back.
Hey, we're back. All right, let me try that again. Path of the Berserker to me, singular damage dealing, very big individual, blocks you from certain crippling things, gives you more attacks, more rage, more damage. It's really focused on making you unstoppable, really. You think of Berserker in the sense of the word Berserker, they get out there, they're swinging like crazy, and things are just dropping in front of them. I thought I was going to like that better, thinking about wanting to be big, crazy barbarian, just I get out there and I one-shot the boss myself in one turn kind of deal. But the Totem Warrior, being a guy that in a lot of the other games I play plays support classes or things that can lend themselves to helping the rest of the animals play so differently. I don't know if either you guys have a preference to which way you'd go with it, but I was sitting here, reading through this and just putting together crazy different builds with this to say, if I have a rogue in my party, which way would I go with this? Or if I have a lot of ranged classes in my party, which way would I go with this? And these are things that, I'd love to see examples come back from, from chat, or even if you want to throw, tweets or Facebook posts at us to say, this is a build that I thought of and this is why I would use it. Because this just fascinates me, and it's an aspect to the barbarian that, that I hadn't seen until I'd gone through this,
I would agree. I think that the Path of the Totem Warrior is what really excites me the most as well. I think that there's a lot of cool things that you can do, and I think it's more about, and for me, and I'm always going to favor role playing, I think that the role playing of a Totem Warrior as a spiritual journey, finding your animal spirit and really embodying those characteristics is a very cool thing.
Yeah, Tara in chat is a fan of the bear totem, it seems.
Yeah.
You want to throw? You got
That's
it.
really cool. I really do enjoy it.
Well, just out of curiosity, why? I'm gonna throw that out there. If you want to throw it in chat real quick, what about the bear makes you? I mean, is bear your favorite animal? I'd love to homebrew a moose in here because I'm a weird dude and that's my favorite animal. It doesn't really make any sense, but
I will make you a moose totem barbarian build. I will homebrew that for you.
perfect. That's what I want to see.
I think while we're kind of talking about favorites, I'm gonna go out and throw eagle. I think eagle is really cool.
Hashtag flying.
Yeah, he's in chat. He says it's the bear totem. He feels it's the best
Yeah.
for tanking.
That's very true. You can take a ton of damage. I like eagle just because you can see up to 1 mile with no effort. I think that is cool. I don't know how you'd use it. I just think it's cool.
That's like
Also,
what's his name in Game of Thrones, where you can like go into the eyes of animals.
Oh yeah,
Which
exactly.
is badass. I'm surprised, Eric. I'm surprised you didn't go with wolf. I respect, regardless of what the definitions of any of those animals are. I figured number one would have been wolf, 100%.
I mean, I enjoy eagle, but let's be honest, I'd probably play wolf. I mean, there is a love that I have for wolves, and people will slowly learn to discover that.
Matt's frozen face right now is
to
amazing.
just pimp eagle right now.
What was that, Matt?
I have to read this straight out of the book right now because I have to pimp eagle all the way. While raging, you have a flying speed equal to your current walking speed. Flying. This is all I have to say on the subject. Flying barbarian is equally as terrifying to me as flying spiders. That's a shout out to my sister who may or may not be watching the stream, but flying spiders keep her up at night. So, hey Annie.
So I think we've got just a little bit of time left, and we can talk briefly about our current campaign if you guys would like.
I would love to. It keeps me up at night that we don't do it every day.
So, I mean, we've kind of, for anybody who's interested, youtube.com/tumtumgg, is that what it is?
Yes.
Is where you can find our pre-recorded, or on this channel. Are they accessible?
Yeah, they're accessible.
Perfect. So you can find both locations, whatever works best for you, if you want to check it out. Currently, we're running through Lost Mines of Phandelver, which is the starter set adventure. It gives you pre-made characters that all of the people are playing their own unique version of those pre-made characters. We do have 6 people, which is more than the starter set recommends. So we do have people who are doubling up on a class race combination. They are playing Wonder Twins Activate, exactly. And they are playing brother and sister for the campaign to make their ideals kind of line up. And yes, as Pittner says in the chat, it is the 5th edition starter set. So that is kind of important. Most of what we're going to be talking about will be 5th edition. To my mind, and everybody's going to have their opinions, and I would love to hear them all in chat as to what the best edition of D&D is. But for me, I think the best streamlined version and most open version would be 5.
I've never played anything else, so 5th edition's my favorite.
You are a liar. We tried playing 3.5
That did not count. That did not count at all.
All right, we maybe played like 1.5 sessions and it didn't work out. Fantastic. Oh, there's Terra Styles repping 4E, which it has its merits.
Yeah, I hear a lot of love for 4.5 from a lot of podcasts that I'm listening to.
4.5 or 3.5?
3.5, sorry.
So yeah, if you want to check out the stream, the recorded sessions, or check it out on YouTube, they are available. From week to week, we will kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in our campaign, how the players are feeling about it, how the DM is feeling about it, and kind of talk over some general points, or say, hey, this was a really cool thing that happened. We think you guys might appreciate it. So I'll kind of open up the floor to you guys and let me know what you thought.
Yeah, just in terms of we're all a brand new group, a lot of brand new players, players that never played before. I mean, besides a session and a half, I've never played before, and anyone else, if they played, it was many, many, many years ago, forgot everything kind of deal.
Correct.
So I think in that sense that we're kind of coming into our own episode by episode. By episode, we do it weekly, every Mondays at 7 p.m. Central, but we do come into our own, and I think every week goes by, we're really growing, and I'm becoming a big fan of it. So I hope it keeps going on for a very long time. That's my plan.
Hey Jeff,
most of what Jeff said.
Yeah, go on, Matt.
Sorry, I heard most of what Jeff and Eric said. I apologize in advance. I'm running on hotel Wi-Fi. I'm apparently somewhere where they don't believe in Ethernet ports. For all of you nerds out there that know what that is, it's awful. But it's been really cool. To Jeff's point, I played for a couple of months in high school. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but that was a while ago. And being that as it may, I don't even honestly remember what edition we were playing at that time. It was probably 3.5 or 4, I would guess. Maybe it's even longer ago than that, but probably not. It is something. It's a heavy. From everything that I've read, everything that I listened to is a simplification of some of the earlier versions or the earlier editions, and it's helped because, guys, I implore you to watch our stream for a little while. If you don't like it, it's fine to turn it back off, but you will see a wide range of people playing on this thing. As Jeff alluded to, a lot of people that have never played before. There are also people that have never done role playing or
Hold on, Matt.
Robot. Hashtag
this
Wi-Fi.
What's up?
Hold on.
Hashtag hotel Wi-Fi.
Yes. Yeah, you're good now. So there's a lot of players who what?
Oh, there's we have players on there that have played role playing before. We have players that don't even know what that means. We have players that different fantasy backgrounds. They're well read in different fantasy worlds, which kind of gives them a different perspective for their role playing. But if you are new to Dungeons and Dragons, or you want to see just a group of people that are coming at this from all different angles, you'll see pretty much one of everything, and you'll probably maybe associate with one of us more than the others as to a way that you'll probably play your character, or that you do play your character based on your experiences. But it has been a ton of fun. We're going on to our 5th episode now, I think, next week.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just falling in love more and more. We are a close group of friends. Have known each other for years, so that doesn't hurt. But it's been a great time, and I think that even after this adventure ends, we'll probably continue this on and maybe switch up the DM and give Eric a break. He can get in there and hit stuff for a little while. And it's just been awesome. I'm just having so much fun with it. So I don't know, Eric, from your perspective. I know you've done this. You've DM'd a couple of times now. You've even DM'd this adventure a couple of times now. How's it different? What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? Which one of us don't you want to play with anymore? Whatever you think.
Well, just the last one first, Matt. You just gotta. No.
I walked right into that one.
I really do enjoy the group. It's been a lot of fun. DMing in general. I do enjoy being a DM and being able to kind of create these stories and put them out in front of you and set up a stage and say, hey, here's a bunch of stuff to play with. Go do it. And then I get it, and then you go, okay, well, I play with this thingy. What does it do? And I'm like, all right, roll some stuff, and all right, that's what it does. It's been a really interesting experience to see And that's the thing, even if you run the same campaign over, it's like I said, it's like I set up a stage, and you throw down a ball. It can be any type of ball. You put one person up there, they're going to do something different with that ball than the next person. So
a square ball.
I don't know if you know what a ball is.
You said any type of ball. That is my
Love it.
type of
Square.
ball, and I'm gonna roll it.
Square ball.
So I think it's been a very interesting experience. I think that I like having all sorts of players. I like having a player that. So if you guys come in and watch, I like having a player like Zach. Zach takes nothing seriously. He hasn't really jumped into his role play. If you tuned into last episode, he has a fear of spiders and imaginary voices.
You might want to throw out character name there, Eric. I'm not sure if they've got real names on there.
Zach is playing Carrick. And Carrick is a elven wizard. But Zach isn't into role play a ton. And it's been exciting. And then you've got people that are deep into role play, people like Varian by Tumtum or Jeff over there, and you've got a Sigurd by Matt. And I think both of those characters are fun to play with because you never know really what they're gonna do, but they're gonna try to stick in character. And then another thing is that while I get to DM, I also get to play Sildar and Halia and all these other NPCs around the town and interact with these players. And it's fun knowing everything that their character has done, and then I say something to them in character as a shopkeeper. And I know what I think they're going to do, but are they actually going to do it? For instance, is your holy cleric going to lie and try to persuade someone to give them more money? Maybe they do.
Can I just throw out, is your holy cleric the only one that's going to pay attention enough to know what we were supposed to be paid in the first place?
It appears so.
I mean, you guys saw my notes on our travels. Okay, it's hard for me to keep track of those types of things when I'm during this.
If I can get a copy of Jeff's notes, we'll throw them up on the Facebook page for all of you to love. Yeah, one of those. We're actually all proceeds of any money we ever make is going to go to buying him some lined paper just to keep all notes straight.
I don't know if it would help. I don't know if it would help. Not in my D&D session conditions. I'm not sure.
So just as a DM, I'm gonna go out and throw kind of a softball question to you guys. How did I know that each of you had a very different reaction to meeting Sildar? So I want to just know your general opinions on Sildar. Whatever you can say without giving too much away to each other, because I know that some of your character emotions you want to keep to yourselves.
So just for reference, Sildar's a NPC we met. We're not going to give away any spoilers in terms of storyline or anything like that, but Sildar is a character we met in our travels in our D&D campaign. He is of the combat variety, like he's very combat ridden, like very I don't know, you can explain it better.
So Sildar is an old combat veteran. He's in his late 40s, early 50s, graying hair, kind of, he's seen a lot. And this isn't this is my last mission kind of thing, because that's not what it is for Sildar. He's helping out a friend, and they encounter the party on the road, and the party gets to meet Sildar and interact with him. And Sildar's personality is very in your face in a sort of way. He doesn't really have time for talking things over. He's seen too much and knows that anytime politics get involved or people have to discuss and say, okay, well, here's what I think we should do, but we should do this. He's the guy that sees through all that and just takes action. So that kind of gives you an idea of who Sildar is. So what do you guys think of Sildar?
You know what? Let's tie it back into the episode. I'm a dwarf. dwarfs don't like other races, and dwarfs don't really like people that are kind of brash and rude and up in your face when you don't really know who they are. They're not of my family, of my clan, and you know, he kind of rubbed me the wrong way at first. However,
Dwarf.
you know, I had to push back a little bit, and we had, in our last adventure, there's a little time for kind of freeform exposition there. We were traveling between places, and I got a chance to talk to him, found out that he also had a military background, as my character does, and we bonded over that. And so, you know, originally not a huge fan, kind of messing with the party, had to sort of team up with our halfling to tell him who's boss, and then, you know, now, you know, he and I have become a little bit closer, and it's interesting because to become close with a player character, you know, like is one thing, but to become close with an NPC that, you know, can go in and out of the story, or may become a part of the story for the rest of the time, we don't know. You know, we're not the ones controlling this adventure. Is sort of a strange experience for me. I don't generally make friends with what I consider to be a computer character in a video game, but it was cool. Jeff, I don't know, you know, if you probably had a little bit different experience. You weren't riding up on the wagon with us, but
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my experience with him, in terms of my experience with the party in the last episode, there's been decisions made that I wasn't a big fan of, just not to give anything away. So, really, I'm kind of on the outs with Sildar. I wasn't a fan. I'm just not a big fan of him in general, or my character's not. He's a great character, but I'm not a fan of him in general. Yeah, there's kind of a rift between actions taken by myself in the very first episode of our stream on accident, of me shooting one of our own party in the neck and knocking him out. And for some reason, that just put a bad taste in everyone else's mouth, I guess, towards my character. I don't know why, but and then it's just there seems to be a rift between my character and the party right now in comparison to everyone else, which is kind of what I'm playing with at the moment. And Sildar is a part of that rift as well, because everyone seems to kind of mesh with him, and my my character isn't. So that's really where I'm at with him, and I haven't had any real time face to face with him yet at all either. So that's about it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the vibe that I was getting from both of you as well. I think that the first time you meet an impactful NPC like Sildar is important. I think that it adds a new dynamic to the party. And like Matt was saying, Sildar's a fleshed out character. He has depth. He's not too deep.
I don't want to interrupt. There's someone knocking at my door, so if I don't come back in like 30 seconds, somebody might have just come and killed me. But I'll be right back, guys.
Noted.
Housekeeping.
Hashtag hotel interruptions.
Hashtag housekeeping.
So I think that's kind of an important thing, is that Sildar isn't necessarily a two-dimensional character. He's pretty deep. He's opinionated, but he does have ties to the character, and he doesn't mind really letting people know what he thinks. But he's also got this rich past of his army in cavalry experience, and that kind of builds into into his character. Also, to address Pittner real quick, absolutely accidentally. So I think that, yeah, I agree. So I think that Sildar is an interesting character, and I think that there's a lot of bonding moments for many NPCs, not just Sildar with the party. I think that there are certainly NPCs that are going to mesh well with certain party members, and I think that'll play an interesting role moving forward.
For anyone, I'm sure people are interested, anyone that's watching, who was at the door, Matt?
Sorry guys, random drunk guy, but I got a beer out of it. So, loving random hotel encounters. I couldn't make this up if I tried.
Oh my God.
We're rocking the light life, unopened. just so you can tell. Oops, I'm dripping ice water all over my keyboard. But so I'm not.
New sponsor.
Yeah. So that's one of the most interesting things that's ever happened to me on or off the air.
That's amazing.
Sorry, I catching up. Are we still back on Sildar? Or,
No, we were really just talking about the interaction of NPCs to PCs and how it's going to be interesting that each of you is going to have a very different reaction to some of the NPCs in the world and how they interact with you. And I think that's just showing just from the first one that you guys met. Some of you, and it's why I picked Sildar. I think there's a group that really likes Sildar, trusts him, is okay with what he's doing, and then there's another group. It's not just Varian. I think there are others that aren't as trusting of Sildar and maybe don't like him as much.
Pittner wants to know if you used a persuasion check to get that beer.
Incredibly high charisma, coupled with his incredibly low intelligence. Guys, we are taking real-world examples of stats right here. Intelligence decreasing probably because of inebriation.
Sure. I mean that's just low constitution right there.
Either way. Yeah, I mean, if it was maybe a craft beer or something like that, I'd say I use a little bit higher charisma check. But I'll take the Miller Lite if it's free. Why not? So.
Any closing thoughts by you guys?
Only other thing I wanted to mention, kind of back to where we were about our session and in relation to Varian being a part of the group. I think he took a big step trying to use his ability to get things from certain people to get beers for his party mates and get them rooms for cheaper, things like that. And I think I'm thinking he's trying to get his way into the party a little bit more, which is right at the end of our last episode, and that's the only other note that I had.
Can I say on that note, what I'm really looking forward to is Varian's bare knuckle brawl.
Yeah. I'm interested in that one too.
We unfortunately ended before the outcomes of Varian's actions could be seen. I think that no spoilers, but I think you'll probably see a little bit of a change in the better direction. I don't think, from my player's perspective, I don't think there was ever anyone that was outwardly hostile towards Varian so much as just maybe a little put out by the fact that he may have missed a little bit and dropped one of our wizards in the first battle.
I don't see it as a bad thing, It's not a bad thing that there's a rift between party members. It's something that could be played. I mean, it's not, like you said, it's not hostile, but it's not, it's not all it's not all kosher either, which is not a bad thing. It's just, it's a different kind of dynamic.
I'm still waiting for Varian to catch a magic missile in the neck.
It's gotta happen.
It's one of the three.
It'll happen. It's like, I'm sure.
I see you.
I aimed one at the goblin, one at the other goblin, and one at Varian. You said Varian, right? Yeah, no, definitely Varian.
No, one at the tree directly behind Varian, but there's no one even near Varian. But I want to hit the tree behind him, and maybe if it goes through him, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm if you got final thoughts, wrap it up as you will. I'm gonna be that social media guy and plug everything we set up. But if you want to tidy up the episode first,
you plug and then I'll close.
So here we started this out a week ago now, just kind of an afterthought that we have a Google Hangout going on between the three of us that we're just constantly talking about D&D and all things nerdy, and said, hey, let's try a podcast. We're always looking for feedback on this stuff, positive or negative, ways to improve this. Hashtag Wolf. He's got two of them. When I get back home, I'll show you mine that could bite both of them in half, but it's not about the size of the wolf. So anyways, not getting too far off the rails. We have set up a Twitter account for this podcast. It's at Starting Equip, EQUIP. There's a Facebook page. If you want to get out there and like that, throw up comments on there. The Facebook page is probably where we're going to post most of the things that we've used on the podcast, any kind of visuals, any kind of links to web pages, things like that. That one's just Starting Equipment on Facebook. You'll see that all three of us have already liked on there. There is also an email address, which is startingequipment, all one word, @gmail.com. That would be probably the best place for long form questions, any critiques, responses, things you've been thinking about. Guys, throw me totemic barbarian builds to that Gmail address. I want to see crazy stuff because I want to play it. I'm super excited about this.
We try to address as much of the YouTube comments and emails that we get in a question section. Obviously, this week we aren't going to have one because this is episode 0.5. Some things to note is our YouTube channel will be changing in the future. That is something that we will keep everyone apprised of. But another thing to keep aware is this is not our normal night for trying to stream and do this podcast. Normally, we're going to be coming to you on Tuesdays around, what do we decide, guys? 8 p.m.?
Yeah, around 8 p.m.
Central Time. And that's when we really want to come to you guys. So anybody who's in the chat right now, thank you for coming and hanging out. If you enjoyed it, let us know. If you think we suck, let us know.
Don't forget to follow the stream if you want constant notifications on when our shows do come up.
Also true.
We're going to tweet it out and throw it up on Facebook. I do think that your primary source information is probably going to be the Facebook page because we can kind of tie all of it together there.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get it. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out and having a good time with us three people that kind of know what we're talking about. If you would like to kind of know more, come check us out next week.
Jeff, one thing you might want to throw out there, because I believe we're switching this up next week. You want to plug the new Twitch channel, or are you just going to cross stream it so that you can find it?
If there's any followers for the stream, there it'll be posted on Facebook, our new Twitch channel, and then a message will be sent out from this Twitch channel for our new one to everyone that follows our stream.
Perfect. Anybody got a closing line on this? I'm sure we'll work on that as the weeks go past.
Thanks for listening to Three Nerds. Kind of know what they're talking about and sometimes making sense. Have a great night, guys.
All right, guys.